Assalamu alaikum. Welcome in Debate Aya with your host Tariq Khan. We will analyze and explore the concept, role, and relationship of media, politics, and security in international relations perspectives. Let me bring our guest in program, Nargis Zara. Ma'am, thank you so much for joining and welcome in program. Ma'am, how would you enlighten the concept of media, politics, and security in international relations perspectives?
So I think media, politics, and security in contemporary politics, or I would say contemporary world, it's something which is most important for the student of international relations to understand. Why? Because no matter the subject they are working on or they are conducting research on, whenever they try to collect data, whenever they try to have some information from secondary or primary source, they come across media, be that print media, be that electronic media, broadcast media, and now the digital media that we call social media. So all types of media is relevant to the student of international relations because they're producing information. They are giving you data every day. Thousands of new words are added every day, and this is a humble estimate. And why it is related to politics for everyone? Because media is known as fourth pillar of state, and it's a pillar of state which was established without proper regulation, just to help political sectors or the people who are in politics or the corridors of power in any country, in any state. It's not only about Pakistan. So politics actually is a kind of manipulation of power at your hand. If you get connections, you get money. If you get money, you get connections. So power and money, they go hand in hand, and they use media as means for it. Now let's go to security. Security has two aspects: security of the people of the state and security of the state, like security against internal threat and security against external threat. And media has always been used as an important means to help state or help the political leadership assure security of its people, to give certain kind of narrative, to keep repeating it, to make opinion, and to give relevant information, to keep back irrelevant information, to omit information, to edit information. So media has been doing a lot, and the role of media in politics and security has intensely deepened since Second World War. There was so much going on. The intelligence sharing of different states, the allied states, it was unprecedented during Second World War. It had never happened in history. The way they were continuously in contact, and the communication was being done, and the mails were being sent, and somehow it became kind of a culture that the educated people, the people who keep in touch with the information, who keep relevant to the society or the policies or the laws, those people read newspaper. And we have seen all around us that reading newspaper is known as a good trait of a person. And all the people who before this mobile came and we had this information at our palm, people used to have newspaper reading as breakfast. With their breakfast, it was so natural to go with the cup of tea. So media has an important role because it connects people to the government. No one of us has any other source, including all forms of media. No one of us has any other source to connect with the government, to know what is happening. For example, there is a news editor and he gets 15 news on his table. And he selects 5 news to be told to the people. those 5 news could be chosen because of anything, because of his own personal judgment, for any good or bad, any right or wrong reasons. He could be under pressure to choose certain news to go to the people and keep back the rest of the news. Or it could be a policy of his newspaper. It could be money because he needs money. We don't pay them enough. As a public, we don't pay them enough to give us that news. And same goes for the researcher. The researcher gets money from the research. Researcher does not get enough money from publishing the research. That is the long-term process with the worth of the research, the referrals and all. So media is being paid by someone, and who is that someone? That is very important for the student of international relations to understand in order to understand relationship of media, politics and security. So connecting the dots, if a news editor gets 15 news, every news is a fact. And every fact has a right to reach the relevant community or person or group in society. But what happens? There is a specific place. If they have on air, if it's about electronic media, if they are giving you news, they have to select certain facts about that fact. Means there is one news, one headline. There are so many realities attached to it, the variables, but they are giving you selective variables. That's why it happened. Then there are many ways, and you can have this little experiment. Just have a headline, have a news, and just see that how different newspapers are giving that news. It shows their context of thinking. It shows the way they want to approach you and why this is important. Media is always dealing with conscious and subconscious process of your thinking. Because you are not only you are an important individual. When it is vote, you are one vote. And if you are a human resource, if you are educated, if you are at some position, then you are more important. You have added worth to. So if you have added worth to your personality, and if you are a vote among many people in a society, then it matters for them that what you think. So they make you they feed you what you have to think. They keep 10 facts back because of any good or bad reason, and they give you 5 facts. That takes me to a point where security comes in. Sometimes we are told by media that this is a threat, but that is actually not threat on ground. It is given some hype because of certain reasons, and those certain reasons are unknown to us. And what is security? This is also very important to understand. For example, we as a nation, we are there for about 70 years now. We have fought few wars. Our enemies and our friends all are unanimously known by the Pakistani nation. So any one of us could go and have a counter check, because security is something which should have a reality check also. One reality check is that you had all the wars against one country. Okay, fine, the threat is real, it comes from that side, so you have to work on it. But all other threats, there are 2 things. Media giving information which is not required. Media creating hype where it is not the case. And there is second thing, media keeping back a threat which is supposed to be told to the people as threat. People should know that this factor, this organization, this person, this country, or this decision is a threat to future of our state. And security is something which is so oftenly used, but security is something which is so oftenly misunderstood and misused and manipulated. Why? Because all of us want a normal life, all of us want to be secure and on certain grounds, on predictable grounds, having future plans. We don't want threats. So when they create a threat, when they let you believe that this is threat, and then they ask you to join them as a crowd, as a community, as a nation to counter that threat and make you pay taxes for that threat, you have to understand the level of threat. Security is not like, it is, I always call it's a negative value. Now, value is, the word value is something which is used in international politics very differently the way we use value in dictionary. Value means, it's not some like good characteristic. Value means something achieved which is not to be lost, right? Value is something which is possessed by a state, which needs to be possessed by a state, and security is something which is based upon negative definition. Now, negative here is not that negative which is vicious negative. No, negative here is about absence of something. So security is absence of threat. No matter what is graph of a what is the stratification, what is the intensity of threat, but security is absence of threat for the people, the territory, and the nation state. So that is why I call security a negative value of a state, because when a state omits something from its governance, only then it can assure security for its people, number one. Number two, there are 5 important things that I call values that a state has to assure. And let me tell you here, I don't think we discussed it, but I'm a realist. As a thinker of politics, I'm a realist. I am a kind of neoclassical realist. The students who understand that, they would know where I am coming from. So if you have any counter opinion, I would love to hear to that. But my opinion is that a state stands for 5 things that it has to provide for its people. First of all is survival. A state should work for its own survival, because if state survives, then the people as a nation survive. And every country on this earth has paid a price to appear as a country on the map of the earth. We don't know history. As students of international relations, we are given so much of reading material, and we are so involved in all other things. In 2 years of master's program, at least, the students had no time to go into the histories of 192 countries. And there are 5 values that a state needs to answer, to assure. The first is survival. The second is security. The third is power, that a state should assure. It should keep power, military power. I have no idealism about that. And the state should assure sovereignty and its own independence. And then a state should assure peace.
Ma'am, do you think that media is reshaping and transforming the international relations, foreign policy, and diplomatic struggles?
How a diplomat or the diplomatic channels can play a role in furthering of the national interest or in assuring national interest of the state. So diplomatic struggle means how media is in connection or in relation with the foreign offices of a state. Foreign policy is something which is a joint, so diplomatic struggle is something functional. Foreign policy is something which is between the policy makers, and then this is given to the diplomatic staff, right, to carry on. So foreign policy, and it's kind of a high tier in interrelationship of the states. International relations is about all other things, including foreign policy. International relations also involves people-to-people relations these days. It also involves economic relations and the trade relations, and everywhere your diplomats are not relevant. or are not involved to the micro details. But yes, we can have these all in one group and discuss role of media. This is a question, and the role of media varies from state to state. It depends upon what kind of constitutional regulations are there for media in every state. And the constitutions about role of media in every state, they change from time to time. For example, media played an important role in Vietnam War for the policies of United States of America to get these changed. Media played its role in Second World War when the Pearl Harbor happened, and it was kind of a pressure built by media, and then a pressure which was exercised by the Allies, and America had to jump into the war. This is what's written in the books. This is what we believed for so long. But then because it happens that after 25 years, so many confidential things have to come in light. And Pentagon has published Pentagon Papers, which is a document of 7,000 pages. And there are so many documents that reveal that it was not that genuine a narrative. It was built. There was a little of the reality, and then it was built. Why it was built? Because the countries, they needed a reason for America to jump in, and who they wanted to answer. Because American Congress had to decide. America is a democratic country. American Congress had to decide that America now can join in the war, Second World War, with its military, because economically it was there, it was already with the Allies, but it wanted to have, when you have a military muscle, and there were weapons being produced and manufactured even in the toy factories. The emergency was there in America. They were saving their allies of Europe, and it was happening for a few years, and now it was the time. And we have to understand there has to be certain psychology. When you have a power, and a muscle, you want to use it. This is a human psychology. When such humans sit with a lot of power and weapons in their hands, and they think that, okay, fine, we are sending Europeans to fight, why can't we go and have some of the cake? Why can't we do that? So human psychology, when is given power and position and has weapons at the background, and they are coming from defense department, and we call these establishment, right? This is a new terminology which is everyone is using. So they wanted to join, and they wanted the peace-minded congressional, or the Democrats, or the Congress of that time, to understand the threat, right? But they couldn't tell that we are excited enough to join Second World War as a military. They just wanted to give it a try, and they used media, and media was used with all its sincerity, thinking that, okay, fine, this is for the national interest of America, and America appeared as superpower after that, and the Cold War started where there were only two powers. So yes, that was the right thing, that media was used. So sometimes the goal is right in international relations, in foreign policy, but the path is not truth. The path is not genuine. This is the reality that student of international relations has to understand, that truth in international politics is always not portrayed by media, because they cannot afford it. State cannot afford it. So if a media is is a genuine media, is genuinely patriotic media, it should keep back some truths. In America, media it has freedom of speech, believe me, but we have no idea that how patriotic American media is. If I keep in mind, there are two things: our media, then our media as international media. The media in Pakistan, how many English channels we have, Tariq? Could you please tell me? Do we have any international news channels in Pakistan?
I think
which are English?
I think 2 or 3. One PTV World, and I think
PTV World is English. PTV World is English. Which is
no,
other one?
Indus News, I think they are doing their program in English, and PTV not in English, but only one or two programs are in English PTV, but mostly
Okay,
are
so
doing in Urdu. Mostly are in Urdu. Yeah.
so that takes me to the point. If we talk about Pakistani media cannot play a role in international relations of Pakistan. Number one, why? Because it doesn't have the language to reach out to the people internationally. So it has only two channels. One is PTV World, which is telecasting its news in English, and the other one is Indus News, which is telecasting its news in English. And we still need to have data that what is their outreach to international community, how far and how wide they are being watched by other nations. Secondly, so that is the relevance. If this is the relevance in international relations, having two channels in a country of 220 million people, then this is level of your outreach, which is less than I think 1%. Coming to diplomatic struggles, do we have trained diplomats in Pakistan? No, we don't have trained diplomats in Pakistan. The people who come from the route of appearing in CSS exams, they are gradually trained, but their voices are not heard because all important international foreign office positions are political positions, and those are given through lobbying in your own political channels. Those are not done through media or performance. What is the presence of your diplomats on your news channels? Okay, even in Urdu, are they discussing any foreign policy issues? No, they are not. So in Pakistan, number one, media regulations need to be, updated. Number two, we have a lot of space where we have to make world listen to us, because you know what happens in Pakistan. As a teacher of international relations, I was giving students an assignment about Pakistan, and they were coming back with an assignment or foreign policy assignment, relations of Pakistan and Saudi Arabia, for example, and they were coming back with all the data and research articles written by foreigners, written by a European. And this is, believe me, teachers do that in their classes, that give us internationally credited, referred, and impact factor references in your research, and it happens in good PhD and MPhil thesis. Why would you ask your serious students conducting research to go and buy opinions of the people and the researchers and the policymakers of other countries? Even when I was a student and I was naive enough, I used to impress my teachers by reading a magazine which is published by Council of Foreign Relations in America, Foreign Affairs magazine. Even our professors are doing that. So you know what we are doing? We are doing jobs. We are not doing international relations through media. We are using media, but we have not equipped our media. We have only two channels. Our English newspaper reading is very low, and people only, let me tell you, when we generate an opinion in newspaper, we take 4 articles and we make a 5th one. When we publish an article, we take 5 articles and we make a 6th one. Genuine MPhils are not there, genuine PhDs are not there. So print media, electronic media, we are not using properly broadcast media for international relations, foreign policy, and diplomatic struggles in Pakistan. So yes, diplomatic struggle is huge, is unnoticed, is unknown to us, because there are many countries where Pakistan has better trade agreements, for example, and just because of political reasons, we are just not tapping those agreements done by the previous governments, and we are not going to those markets. We are trying to go to the markets, Dubai or America, which are so well tread already. So, but internationally, media is used as an excellent tool. I cannot name a channel, I cannot name the channel, but it has happened in United States of America that a channel was fined for giving a report in favor of one politician and against another politician. Why? Because the investors didn't like it. So medias are not independent. Medias are sporting. If there are 5 groups, they have their 5 media outlets. Outlets, why? Because they would be approaching you through radio or FM. They would be coming to you through the TV channels or the print media, or they have their own ways to reach you, but they will be giving you opinion all the time in favor of their group, lobbying group. And at the end, Tariq, just allow me to add one more thing. Politics, we are given the concept of politics since childhood in a very patriotic manner, and in a very, I would say, should I call it innocent manner or what, but we are not politically literate society. We are not realistically politically literate society. Politics inherently is manipulation. Politics cannot be a fair game. Politics cannot be a truthful game, because it's a difficult sport for a person to pursue, and they need media to say what they cannot say. And if we talk about even CPAC, because we have most important relation at the moment with China, if we talk about CPAC, China has invested millions of dollars, and this is double-digit millions of dollars in Pakistani media, and the public even doesn't know about it, but the IR student should be very investigative kind of person, and you guys should know about that. If China is investing millions of dollars in your media, somehow what China would be doing, giving you false good information. Otherwise they didn't need to do that. Number one. Number two, keeping the information which can affect CPAC or their future designs about Pakistan, keeping that information away from your ears and your eyes. So this is what Chinese media has done, and we don't know about it. That's where I said that why security, politics and media is concerned, because media is used as a tool to make you think what they want you to think, right? No one is raising the point that the girls of poor families from Pakistan are being married to the Chinese and sent over there. When we talk about Kashmir and human rights, we omit China and human rights and the suffering of Muslims over there, right? Because it's not in the state policy, because state is looking at billions of the dollars, billions of the dollars, and the economic future development for the 200 million plus people of Pakistan. This is wisdom of state. Media is being used. So media is used for 2 things, being a speaker or the mouthpiece, and to go silent and curb or put the information under the carpet. And yes, every state is doing it. And I'm sitting in America, I can tell you, media was used for lobbying. Media is being used for lobbying. Media would always be used for lobbying, right? So this is the reality. As students, we should understand media has a role to play, but varies from country to country. Thank you.
Ma'am, how would you describe the role and influence of Pakistani media in politics and national security decision making?
What I feel is a truth, and sorry, because I'm continuously in touch with my own subject, so sometimes if it does happen that you think that I have changed my opinion, please, my wall is there on Facebook. You can always come and leave a question, messenger or my wall or any social media handle, that madam, why did you change your opinion? And I will give you a fact and a route that, okay, I learned this new thing. As I told you that at a point I was naive enough to believe few things, but now I don't. So coming to Pakistani media, wow. Pakistani media, since the time of President Musharraf, has been given freedom. It has become a market. Initially, it was a tool which was mostly used by state, and you can imagine, you can just look back that how many newspapers, how many media news channels we had before Pervez Musharraf came. So Pervez Musharraf has done 2 things which are for the betterment of Pakistan. One was this Higher Education Commission, and giving you so many universities, because you had youth coming after colleges, you didn't have universities. Then he gave you these channels in media. They had a role to play. they had a lot of role to play. As I said, that media in any case is very important for the foreign policy and the diplomacy and international relations and security peace of a country is important. So Pakistani media has that status already. Even tomorrow, even if you guys have a channel at YouTube or anywhere, you have an outreach. If you have an outreach, you have ears to listen. You have a chance to affect opinion and the way people, to affect the way people think, right? So media had that. The media was given that significance. It comes with the role of it. Number one. Number two, constitutionally, your media was given freedom of expression because he had a rule of enlightened moderation. And we went with it, okay, fine. But what happened that your media channels were established by the people who did not have a background of journalism. The people who were probably having, a cooking oil factory or a business, people who were having shoe manufacturing factories, the people who were in real estate, and the people who had black money and they wanted to legitimize it. Somehow those people came in and all the media ventures by the journalists or the groups of the journalists could not do well. Why? Because they did not have money to feed that much. So media was and your market of media, as I said, that money is always involved. For example, these days, if you go at Wikipedia is a basic source of information for, if it's kind of a dictionary for the facts and politics, and you go to it and you understand in first paragraph what is what, who is who. Wikipedia these days, if you happen to visit it, it's a form of media, and it is requesting you, actually it is reprimanding you that you are not giving it aid of $2 because it is fighting for its survival now. The pandemic has hit it very hard and its business venture is going down. So every media needs a money to run its business. So government was giving subsidies to Pakistani media, and Pakistani media was supposed to exercise freedom of expression, but not against the government. Now, let me tell you, this has happened in Pakistan, and I have seen, I won't name because everyone has a family. I have seen some journalists of Pakistan. I was sitting somewhere with a friend at an office of an organization, and there was a draft of a book in editing, and we were rereading, or I would say proofreading it. The reason is important to be given to the students because they will say, why madam was there? So madam was there because my teacher was writing a book and I was proofreading that draft for him. So in post office hours, I was like, it was about 6 p.m. or so, I was sitting in his office and we were doing this, and there were checks at his table for some journalists of Pakistan, and those were signed, those checks were coming from Standard Chartered, Delhi, right? So we know where Delhi is, and we know why this is important. So something is missing in Pakistani media somewhere. So especially your Urdu news media, especially you, because when I am looking at it as a viewer, I think they are trying to do something to Pakistan. They are bashing Pakistan so much, and then someday there is a person, he was earning 12,000 before Musharraf, and I'm quoting him, and now he is, I would say, a tycoon, and he is probably a billionaire. And no one shows real worth in Pakistan. It's not the case. And being a journalist, if you are earning so much, then there is something fishy. Because news reporting in citizen journalism in Pakistan is done recently, since this social media explosion has happened. So Pakistani media has played, what I'm trying to say, a very negative role, very anti-state role for Pakistan. The newspapers, the English newspapers are not included in it. initially the Urdu newspapers were owned by different political parties. So one newspaper of one political party was bashing the other political party. It's okay. It happens in your domestic politics. But when it comes to your international politics and you are working with help of the kids or the students of politics, history and Pakistan studies, and you are a senior journalist and you sit on screen and you are being watched by hundreds or thousands of people, and then you are giving falsehood, and there is another journalist. I don't call these people journalists. The anchor, he's an anchor person, and I think he is a bit he's a bit gone from here, because he tells the lies which even when you're listening to it you just can't see that he's telling the lie, but he's being paid hundreds and thousands for one program and one episode. So your media, number one, has got a lot of freedom. Believe me, your media is exercising more freedom of expression than the media in West or Europe has. You have no idea of the constitutional regulations. The way this is, the constitutional regulations European or American media has to go through, right? Because they will speak against you and you will think they are liberal. Have you seen them ever speaking against their own national interest? No, they will speak against their prime minister, they will speak against their president, they will enjoy that kind of non-issue freedom of expression. But when it comes to the issues like war, peace, joining United Nations or not, joining peace mission or not, have you seen any Western media going against? No. And if they speak, it is knowledgeable, it is research based, and it is in limits. It is in limits. It is kind of an informed dialogue with the state. It is not happening in Pakistan. In Pakistan, they start bashing the state. And then it is politicized thing. Then the same person, two months ago, he was speaking in front of in favor of one organization. After 2 months, he's speaking against that organization. It is 180-degree change. So in 2 months, 180-degree change is questionable. So Pakistani media is kind of, let me tell you, it is a blind bulldog. It is not in control of anyone, but the ones who are selling it, and it is a commodity. They have made it a saleable commodity without any proper rules and regulations. And at last, for this, I would say, question, I would add that coming in the social media, the situation has gone almost out of hand for the policymakers to understand, because we are creating unrest all the time as a public. We are getting information, irrelevant information, unease, restlessness, and we are making it difficult for the policymakers. And let me tell you, just like your parents, they're dealing with serious issues in their families. Every matter is not to be told to the people. In the same manner, everything is not to be told to the people by the leaders. There are few things which are so irrelevant to us, and it is their responsibility. Either we haven't chosen responsible political leadership, or we should not bicker against them all the time. It's no one could be that bad, no one could be that good. That kind of reality has to be taken in political analysis. So Pakistani media's role is adverse. It shouldn't be the way it is. And fortunately, the two English channels that we have, those are not, I think, I haven't seen them going against or going sensational or going breaking news every day. So I think that's kind of relief as an analyst of international politics. So thank you so much.
Freedom of expression gives someone right to insult?
Oh, that's a really good question. Thank you so much. So let me tell you one thing. As students of international relations, we should understand, or even as citizens, we should understand, nothing is absolute. No truth is absolute. If you and me happen to be at some point and there is an incident, you may have slightly different opinion of that incident, and I may have slightly different opinion of that incident. So your truth would be slightly different from my truth, despite the fact that we were at the same time and we observed the same thing. So absolute truth, number one, is not possible, because it always is up to human observation and noticing the details. The observation is something which is a tool, and everyone has not improvised it. to the level of perfection. Number two, when we have a truth, how we tell it is another thing. Number three, as I said, that media is for manipulation. Media was always for lobbying, but it has gone the other way around. So there has to be some balance between the freedom of expression and insult. And in 1973, Constitution of Pakistan, self-respect is basic right of a human being. And if a citizen of Pakistan complains against another citizen of Pakistan that he or she compromised my self-respect and proves it, then the person who is proven guilty has to pay fine, and there could be, some imprisonment also for a short period. So self-respect is something which was accepted, and it was registered in your constitution as a basic right in 1973. So media constitutionally also cannot insult anyone. You cannot go below the belt, because you're committing two crimes. One, you are compromising the peace of mind and lives of all the people attached to the person who you are highlighting. And all those people who are attached to the person are common citizens, and they have done nothing wrong to earn that disrespect in society that you have caused to the family of the person. Number two, when you keep giving, for example, these days, a lot of information or news on social media is viral, getting viral about the so-called affairs of the politicians with the ladies. Now, let me tell you, because we are students of politics in a very clear manner, power, politics, and prostitution have always been linked since centuries, even before Christ. So don't be surprised for it. Just sort out the person not to favor ever, right? Because this is height of immorality. If a person has this height of immorality, there is a probability that he will have height of immorality in dealing your finances as a leader also. In dealing your taxes, he might be lying to you. So deterioration of morality, okay, fine. But what we do, we give by giving this kind of information, and the censorship of social media is largely decided by where from the social media is being governed. That is being governed from all the liberal societies. So our Islamization does not apply. So we are at the risk of watching almost anything on YouTube or on Facebook or such things, even on Twitter. So second thing that happens is that the morality of the nation gets immune to vulgarity, gets immune to the hatred, gets immune to insanity or insult. When you get immune, you become a demoralized society over a period of time, 5 to 10 years. So we as media, wherever we are, even if we are using Zoom now, this is a medium. We cannot do that. We cannot let it happen to our kids. And why the cases of abuse or insult at personal level in family or in society or street are happening in Pakistan more now? Because we have become immune in last 10 years. We don't mind looking at it. We don't mind seeing it. It has become a news. We could be heard for news number 1, but we cannot be heard for news number 10 at the degree of the 1, right? So yes, there has to be a balance. If you have to tell truth, there has to be an ethical way to tell the truth. Just tell the truth. No one is stopping you from that. But make yourself literate to tell the truth. And I would invite my students or whoever is listening that try to follow the political sarcasm or comedy of British culture or their media. They will give you language, they will give you background. Why British? Because our system is inspired from them, and we still haven't revised so many laws. And we relate ourselves more to the British culture of language than to any other country in the world. So I would invite you to do that. And if you have to show your, I would say, disagreement towards anyone, or your despise, I would say, or your hatred, you will have a lot of words and expressions to learn from. And why we have to follow Britishers and why not us? Because as I told you, as a political entity, as a political entity, as a nation, we are politically illiterate. None of our political leader is literate. None of our political leader is literate, and no one of them knows that what they are doing. So we are in hands of I would say politically illiterate people. Just like you give a class to an illiterate person, he was out in the street doing something and you just called him in to teach a class of IR. So, yes, there has to be a balance. Thank you so much.
Ma'am, thank you so much for your valuable and precious analysis, and thank you so much
for
again.
having me on. God bless you. Have a great day.